Hello, this is a presentation by Katherine Daniel and Abby Frey on the art movement Afrofuturism. We're going to start with a quick overview of what it is. So Afrofuturism is a movement created by Black artists, novelists, musicians, and other creatives who aim to see their futures not only represented, but represented with positivity in a way that had never been seen. The term, originally coined by Mark Derry, defines Afrofuturism as speculative fiction that treats African American themes and addresses African American concerns in the context of 20th century technoculture, and more generally, African American signification that appropriates images of technology and a prosthetically enhanced future. Afrofuturism takes images from the future, such as computer technology, cyborgs, synths, and spaceships, and more, and combines these with images and symbols from Black culture, especially from the African diaspora. Most importantly, they put Black figures and Black faces front and center. In doing so, they cement Black figures as the protagonists, heroes, and muses. The movement focuses around themes of utopianism, liberation, and remixing, taking the past and mixing it with a future in a collage of sorts. Ultimately, the movement focuses on imagining a future of liberation and a future separated from the racism of our present world. In the 1970s, at the time of Mark Derry's Black to the Future interview, there was only about 4 prominent Black sci-fi writers: Octavia Butler, Samuel R. Delany, Steve Barnes, and Charles Sanders. Mark theorized that although there were very few science fiction novelists, that this is a new growing movement that was only going to get stronger. In the article, he says, in a very real sense, African Americans are the descendants of alien abductees. They inhabit a sci-fi nightmare in which unseen but no less impassable force fields of intolerance frustrate their movements. Official histories undo what has been done, and technology is too often brought to bear on Black bodies, referring to things like branding, forced sterilization, and others. Yet, despite this, the actual creation of the Afrofuturist movement came in direct response and opposition to these thoughts. African American writers, artists, and musicians began to create a world and a future of their own, away from the thoughts and notions of their white oppressors, that was founded in histories they would dive back into. Afrofuturism is in its own way a form of resistance, as they create a future that their oppressors allow them not to have. Ytasha L. Womack then moved on to write the book Afrofuturism, The World of Black Sci-Fi and Fantasy Culture, to explain this defense, stating, "It's only one thing when Black people aren't discussed in a world history. Fortunately, teams of dedicated historians and culture advocates have chipped away at the propaganda often functioning as history for the world's students to eradicate that glaring error. But when even in the imaginary future, a space where the mind can stretch beyond the Milky Way to envision routine space travel, cuddly space animals, talking apes, and time machines, people can't fathom a person of non-Euro descent 100 years into the future. A cosmic foot has to be put down." We're going to be focusing on 3 main purposes of the movement. The first of those being addressing the oppression of African Americans throughout time by looking to the future. One piece of art that does this is The Last Billboard by John Rubin and Alicia Wormsley. The Last Billboard project is a custom-designed billboard, founded, curated, and designed by John Rubin and Pablo Garcia, located on the corner of Highland and Baum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which on the East End has suffered gentrification. Different artists were invited each month to use the billboard in their own individual way, and when it was Wormsley's turn, she put up the words, "There are Black people in the future," which was seen by an average of 10,000 people in cars each day it was up. According to Wormsley's website, the words are inspired by other Afrofuturist artists and writers, challenges contemporary views of modern American life, and addresses systematic oppression of Black communities through space and time by reassuring the current and future present of Black bodies in our society. Another piece that attempts to achieve this is Black Kirby's Magneto X. Black Kirby is the nickname for a duo of artists, Stacey Robinson and John Jennings, who remixed the work of famous comic book writer and artist Jack Kirby, who worked for both DC and Marvel Comics extensively. In Black Kirby's piece Magneto X, they depict human rights activist Malcolm X wearing Jack Kirby's character Magneto's helmet. They describe that this piece compares the two as they were both leaders of an oppressed class working to end that oppression. The second purpose we're focusing on is portraying blackness in a way that isn't in resistance to whiteness. Many literary and film artists use a combination of Afrofuturist aspects, elements of science fiction, historical fiction, speculative fiction, fantasy, Afrocentricity, and magic realism with non-Western beliefs, all work together to express that a society that was founded upon Afrocentrism rather than Eurocentrism could be technologically advanced, which is a concept that's opposite to how Black culture was historically and sometimes still is portrayed in art, as many times artistic representations of Africa and Black individuals focuses on their struggle or hunger and poverty. Likely the most popular example of this is the comic series Black Panther, written by Jack Kirby. It is set in the fictional utopian city of Wakanda. Due to the 2018 movie's success, it became a place where its Black viewers imagined living in the future, where they wouldn't have to face the struggles that are a result of living in a society that is based on Western civilization. The third focus is creating an empowering future for all African Americans. According to the book Afrofuturism, Reimagining STEM for Black Learners, because Afrofuturism imagines a certain future for oneself, it may improve the synergy between Black students' will toward justice and employing STEM as a vehicle towards that end. 3 Afrofuturist artists are Octavia Butler, Nichelle Nichols, and Faneuil Lewell all work towards this purpose. The science fiction novelist Octavia Butler wrote novels that didn't mimic all the other sci-fi novels of the 1970s, and rather wrote stories aligned with Black cultural themes with Black heroines as the main characters. Novels like Kindred and Parable of the Sower were notable contributions that led to other non-traditional voices in sci-fi. Secondly, the actress Nichelle Nichols played the character Lieutenant Nyota Uhura, the Chief Commissions Officer of the USS Enterprise in the television series Star Trek. This was a groundbreaking role, as like Butler's novels, it paved a path for Black voices in sci-fi television. She even had a conversation with Martin Luther King Jr. at a fundraiser where he urged the actress to continue her role in the show because of the positive impact it had on Black youth who watched it. Lastly, Faneuil Lewell, a contemporary Afrofuturist visual artist, describes the pieces he creates as a mix of African tradition with the futuristic world. Seeing art and images like his pieces continues to inspire youth to pursue further education in the STEM field today. In conclusion, Afrofuturism has expanded across all media as a creative platform for African American artists to reinterpret and reimagine the past, liberate themselves in the present, and create a more empowering future for African Americans. Because it is so optimistic and hopeful, Afrofuturism has helped transform perceptions of Black neighborhoods and Black youth from worries of unknowingness and efficiency to sites of unlimited imagination, and is a powerfully important contribution to the African diaspora. Lastly, here are sources, which will also hopefully be in the description, and thank you so much for listening.